What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy and I'm coming at you with an action figure review. Today I'm going to be reviewing Hasbro The Black Series May the 4th Be With You Scout Trooper. This figure went up for order on Hasbro Pulse, I think on May the 4th, Star Wars Day, which in my opinion, I think for this whole wave was a little bit of a miss. I was able to get the Stormtrooper early, but that was because the listing was put up on their website before it was supposed to be. But when it comes to this and the B1 Battle Droid that was exclusive to Target, they didn't even get put up for order until May 4th, so you end up getting them after the day is already over. In the future, I would much prefer that, much like the holiday figures that Hasbro puts out, that they make these available so that they actually show up before or on May 4th. The Scout Trooper is a fan channel exclusive here in the US, meaning that you could get it on Hasbro Pulse initially, but then it also went up on online retailers like Big Bad Toy Store and other fan channels. The Scout Trooper comes on the standard style of packaging for the Black Series with a little bit of a twist. So as opposed to the base color of the box being just a drab black, they made it look a little bit more like a Starfield with these little specks of white that you'll see on all sides of the box. Now, on the top of the front of the box, we have our Black Series logo done in gold as opposed to gray. We have a big plastic window showing you the figure, his one accessory, and you can see that target practice piece behind them. That's one of the gimmicks of these figures. We'll get into that after we cover the packaging. Here on the side, we have in vertical text the character name, and then below that, you can see the wraparound banner in that gold color. You can see they actually did alter the shape of the window a little bit to give you that little cutout for the May the 4th Be With You logo. And then down below that, we have some more logos and legalese. On this side of the box, where they would usually have the mural art for your figures, we have the May the 4th Be With You logo, the Starfield background, a wraparound banner, and then the character name at the bottom. And then on the back of the box here, we have the Black Series logo. You have a nice glam shot of the figure, which I actually do prefer this over them reusing the mural art that they use on the side of the box. And then you can see the target practice piece back here. It says in about 1,000 different languages, includes target practice. And then of course we have character name. And speaking of 1,000 different languages, we have a bio, and this bio reads, "Embrace the lighter side of the Force with limited edition figures from the Black Series. May the 4th be with you." And then down here you can see it says Endor Biker Club. That is what his little graphic tee that he has on says. We'll cover that more in the review here. You'll see below here where they usually have the number for the subline of the figure here. We have 05.04454 May the 4th, and you can see it says Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Below that, we have all our legalese. Guys, please don't feed this action figure to your babies. On this side of the box, you can see we have the May the 4th logo again, our wraparound window, wraparound banner, and you can see the Black Series logo at the bottom. Then on the bottom of the box, we have even more legalese, and on the top, you can see we have the May the 4th logo, and you can see that whatever case this was in got cut into a little bit at the Hasbro Pulse warehouse. But with that, we have the packaging covered, so let's get this guy opened and we'll check him out. Alright guys, here is our Scout Trooper out of the box. Now, much like if you've seen my other two reviews for the May the 4th B1 Battle Droid and the Stormtrooper, we're going to take a look at a unique piece that's part of the gimmick of this May the 4th Be With You wave. So we're going to set our Trooper and his accessory off to the side, and we're actually going to take a look at this target practice piece. Now, this is a piece that you will notice is leaned up against the backdrop of my review booth here, and that is because, unfortunately, and this is one of my critiques on these little target practice pieces, as fun as they are, it is a little annoying that they didn't include either some sort of cardstock or plastic little holder so that you could prop this up and have it kind of either at an angle or just straight up. Because on one hand, I do understand the concept of these being that, yeah, they are a real target practice piece. They have the very familiar, if you do any kind of shooting drills or any kind of firearms training, this is a very typical real look for a target practice piece, and those would be hung up or stapled to some sort of cardboard or particle board or something like that. And I understand that, but for the sake of the displayability of the figure, I would have preferred if there was some sort of piece that you could have to prop this up. Similarly, I'm gonna critique the material of this a little bit again. I don't want to rehash this too much, as I've already covered it twice now with the other two May the 4th Be With You figures. I feel like the paper and cardstock they used for this is just very flimsy. It's very thin. I would have preferred the thicker material they went with for the Valentine's Day edition Ewok, which I was actually very impressed with how thick and durable that cardstock felt. It felt higher quality than what we see here. But aside from that, in looks, it does actually look like a target practice piece that would exist in the Star Wars universe if you crossed it over with a realistic target practice piece. They did include a little bit of Arabesh on the top here. You can see in Arabesh this translates to Empire Training, which is perfect because this is an Imperial character. Over here we have name, score, and distance, and those can be tracked there as well. Again, very realistic if you do any kind of firearms training in your profession or just for fun. And then for the silhouette, which is usually the silhouette of a person, we have an Ewok here, which this looks to be Wicket specifically, and that's kind of fun. And you can see here that they have all these carbon scoring marks, like the Scout Trooper has been missing all of his shots, which this I feel like could have also been funny if they went with the Remnant Scout Trooper look. It would have been funny if they included the little piece of metal, little piece of scrap that the Scout Troopers are shooting at the end of season 1. They have that little comedic scene there. And then I will say one other very minor critique here is that all of these carbon scoring marks are exactly the same. They did not spin them or mirror any of them, so them looking identical looks a little bit low effort to me. However, I will say they are spread out enough as opposed to the ones that come with the Stormtrooper and especially the Battle Droid that you don't notice it as much. But it's a fun accessory, it's a fun gimmick in theory on paper, but in execution I feel like this just could have been done a little bit better. So we're going to set that piece off to the side now. We'll take a look at the Scout Trooper's other accessory here, that being his blaster pistol. This is a standard blaster pistol that we've seen time and time again since the early days of the Black Series. This time it is done in a gunmetal coloration for the sculpt as opposed to the black color that they usually go with, and it's got some decent sculpted detail, no painted detail or weathering applied to it whatsoever, but for such a small sidearm for these characters, I don't have any issue with that. It looks good. Alright guys, let's take a look at our Scout Trooper now. So I think my blanket statement that I want to make now, I don't want to dwell on this too much, is that in the year of our Lord 2026, I think we are well past how dated the articulation is on this figure. This figure looks good, and I never had a problem with the Scout Trooper when I first started collecting back in 2019. But when I first started collecting in 2019, this figure sculpt was 5 years old. Fast forward to 2026, this figure's sculpt is a 12-year-old sculpt now. I feel like the Black Series is beyond the pinned double joints at both the elbows and the legs, and I feel like at this point, even though the figure looks good, I feel like when you articulate him and you get him into some more athletic or dynamic posing, he's going to stand out like a sore thumb amongst the rest of your modern Black Series figures, which now have the much better looking and much more flush single joints at the elbows and the knees. That's just my personal opinion. I know there are people out there that really do prefer the pinned double jointed looks because of course there is the advantage of them having just a little bit more range of articulation as opposed to the seamless look that the single joints have. I just feel like for my display, with how big and avid of a Black Series collector I am, I feel like this trooper should have been updated, and I feel like in 2026, even though it's a gimmick figure, even though it's a fun little novelty, I feel like there could have been better choices, more modern choices in the Black Series than this trooper here. All that out of the way, let's talk about the figure itself. So one of the gimmicks of the May the 4th figures was of course the target practice, but the other gimmick that they included with these figures are these soft goods printed t-shirts here. Now I know that these were a little bit controversial for people. Some people were not a fan of these soft goods t-shirts, but I will argue that the graphic tees, I'm actually wearing one right now as I'm recording this review, is a staple of the Star Wars community. Star Wars fans, whether they're represented in hyperbole in movies or TV, or actual Star Wars fans that you meet day to day, will very commonly be wearing some funny, goofy Star Wars graphic t-shirts. So I feel like this was a fun nod to the fandom itself, a very self-aware thing, if you will. So this graphic tee is done in white, and you can see all of the fabric is white. They didn't dye this one like they did for the Battle Droid or for the Stormtrooper, and you can see it's got some really nice printing on the front here. It looks a little bit crooked because of just the way that the shirt is fitting onto the character here, and this is leading me to another thing that we'll get into. The shoulders are so stiff on this particular action figure sculpt that that's going to bother me. We'll get into that later, but you can see it says Endor Biker Club, ride or die, and you can see you got a little Scout Trooper on a speeder bike riding through a forest, and that is just fun. Look at all the detail that you can get with those graphic tees there. That's very impressive, the level of detail you can get with this new printing technique that they seem to be going with. And then of course on the back here, they did include a little cutout for his backpack, and then whereas the other two two figures had this up towards the top, down toward the bottom of the shirt. You can see it says May the 4th be with you, Star Wars Day on there. Again, lots of accurate detail. It's not printed on wonky at all. Looks good. And I think honestly, this is a technology that if they were kind of using these figures to test this new technology, I think it was a slam dunk. And this is probably something I would like to see with more soft goods pieces in Star Wars going forward. So moving on to the figure itself. Now, I don't think we can remove the soft goods t-shirt. I'm sure if you popped the head off the figure, you could, but I don't think we can with the head on here. But if you look here, you can see we have our helmet. It's just done in a white sculpt here. They did paint a glossy black for the visor, a little bit of silver and black for the little frown underneath the visor, and then on the front of the helmet here, you can see this is some more, I want to say a gunmetal color. It catches the light very, very nicely. You can see they did paint black here for the sides of the helmet. You can see a little dot up here. This is for the hinges for the helmet. If you would lift it up in universe, that is a thing that these helmets can do. Not on this figure, however. These little rivets here are done in that gunmetal color, and then you can see a little bit more painted detail on the back with some basic sculpted detail. Like I said, and this is going to be my blanket statement again about the figure sculpt looks good. It's with the articulation points that are quite dated on the figure and could definitely use some updating. Again, particularly the elbows and the knees. Underneath here, you can see the exposed hinge of the old style of neck articulation before they went to the dumbbell joints. And then you can see underneath here, we've got the main torso of the figure. This is just done all in the base white sculpt here. This is accurate to what we see in the films and in the TV shows here, just basic sculpted detail. Of course, it's all hidden by the soft goods t-shirt, so I don't really expect that there would be any painted detail under here. It's hard for me to show because of the way that the fabric sits over the sculpt of the figure, but you can see here that the shoulder armor does kind of bleed through in the black undersuit, which is all done in that black sculpt. And then you can see some of the armor on the back of the arms is painted as well. You can see they did also paint a little detail on the back of this bicep plate. And of course, the right arm is identical to the left arm in this case. I will give them props though. They did use that gray paint color for the top of the backpack. That wasn't something I was expecting. I was expecting that to be covered up by the t-shirt and not painted at all. But you can see again, even more of that detail. And okay, I will give them credit again. They did paint the back of the belt. That is very nice there. You can see a little bit of a dark khaki color as well as some gray on either side of that back of the belt. Very nicely done. I'll give them that on the paint detail. As for the forearms and the gloves and everything, it's a lot more plain. It's just that black sculpt, and you can see here it's got nice sculpted detail. They did a good job with all of the undersuit, giving it those wrinkles and folds, and you can see the sculpt is of course interrupted by those, in my opinion, very ugly pinned joints. But then you can see down here we have a little bit of an overlay for the bottom of the belt. You can see the little I guess I call them saddlebags here are a very loose overlay, so when you're articulating the hips, these should just move right out of the way. You can see it does connect with a single strap underneath the crotch there. We go back to some really nice sculpted detail for the legs, just in a very plain black. You can see that they also painted on the knee armor here in a nice white color. The sculpt itself is black. You can see that kind of bleeding through on the back of the knee armor there. But again, those very gappy pinned double joints. Again, I keep finding myself harping on it, even though I said I wasn't gonna make it a big deal. I just feel like we're past this in the Black Series. And then at the boots here though, we do have a nice built-in sculpt for the holster for the pistol there, which is great that they included that. And you can see just basic detail for the white boots. You can see he's got those nice biker boots down here with some tread that's very nicely sculpted in. And you can also see they did include two different peg holes, one at the front towards the toes and one back toward the heels. And it looks to me, the more I look at this, that this boot is actually painted. It looks like it's done in a different color than the rest of the lower leg. I wonder why that is. But aside from that though, I think that overall the looks of the figure are fine. I mean, for the most part, the sculpt still holds up. And when we get into the articulation though next, you'll kind of see what I mean with some of that gappiness. So speaking of the articulation, let's take a look at that next. So this is gonna kind of be a blast from the past for the Black Series here. So the way they used to do the neck articulation on the figures, it was a hinge here, which again you can see exposed a little bit, and a ball joint. In the case of the Scout Trooper, this is actually still some pretty good range. You can really get that head to look down really well, and you can get him to look up a decent amount as well, especially if you want him in that biker scout, you know, riding the speeder bike position. That's really nice. Unfortunately though, you get very minimal tilt, but you do get right and left very well there too. At the shoulders, they do have a hinge and swivel. However, this sculpt sculpt predates when they would do articulation for the butterfly joints at the torso there. And then of course you have the issue that the shoulder armor, being a separate sculpted piece, does have limitations there too. So as you can see, I'm having a really hard time getting these shoulders up at all at the hinge there. The left one seems to be stuck, but I'm able to get the right one up, and you can get it to a little bit less than the 90-degree mark. And then of course, technically there is a swivel. You could technically swivel this 360 degrees, but as you can see, when I do that, it kind of warps the fabric of the soft goods, which is going to limit you. But if you removed the soft goods t-shirt, you could still get this a full 360 degrees. This figure does feature a bicep swivel, which is nice. And then here you can see those pinned double jointed elbows, and those elbows do give you really nice range. They get him to be able to touch his own shoulders. And I will say, in the particular case of the Scout Trooper, the armor here at the elbow does actually hide a lot of that gappiness of those double hinges. But at the same time though, it just kind of looks like his arm is broken because he's got those two different spots where his arm bends, so it can be really easy to make it look very unnatural. And then of course we also have the hinge and swivel at the wrists. So you can see he has the swivel with the vertical hinge at the right wrist, and he has another vertical hinge at the left wrist here too, and those are both sculpted to be trigger finger hands. Our Scout Trooper has a ball joint that goes about midway through the torso here that's hidden by the soft goods. It's got some okay range. He can't really crunch forward with it at all because of these big pouches on the front of the torso, but he can arch his back a little bit, and you can get maybe a little side to side and a little bit of back and forth too. Then we jump down to the hips, which have a basic ball joint system. You can see you can get some decent range out of those, and like I was saying earlier, that overlay does move itself right out of the way for you. We do have a cut for a thigh swivel built in, so that's going to give you some added range at the legs, especially considering we have those pinned double jointed knees. And again, due to the shaping of the knee armor, we do actually hide a lot of the gappiness of the pinned double joints. And of course, you do also get, again, just like the elbows, more range than the single jointed look, but especially when you look at it like this, when his knee is bent this way, it just looks very unnatural. It looks like, again, he has broken legs. So, you know, if you wanted a more natural look, you would just want to bend one hinge or the other to make it look better. But at the time this sculpt was made back in 2014, this was typical for the Black Series to have that, and for many 6-inch action figure lines for that matter. We do have included here a boot swivel at the top of the boot, which is very nice inclusion there. And then of course at the ankles, we have our Hasbro classic, the forward facing pin for rocker, and a hinge which gets you some really nice forward and some really nice back as well. So all said and done, for the most part, he's got good articulation. It's more so for me that he just doesn't fit in with the aesthetics of current Black Series figures. Of course, I want to show you guys the pistol next. So that fits into the little ankle holster pretty nicely. It sits in there with friction, and it does actually pass the shake test too. So hopefully it doesn't get eaten by the carpet monster. And then of course we will sit the blaster pistol into the hand here. So we'll kind of just twist that into place. You'll see the way they sculpted the hand is that the top two fingers are actually sculpted separately from the bottom two fingers. And with that, you can see both of the top two fingers sit nicely into the trigger guard as they're supposed to. And this sits nicely in the hand. It passes the shake test there. Here we've got a pretty basic mid-stride pose for the trooper, maybe patrolling the forest of whatever planet he's on, looking around for some Ewoks. And here's a nice one-legged running pose for this figure. He does have a good center of gravity for how old the sculpt is here. You can see you can still get some pretty natural looking poses out of him, so he does still hold up for the most part. But with that, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this review. Ultimately, this is a fun novelty release for the Black Series, but I do have a few critiques. One, and this is a little bit less in the power of Hasbro distribution, because I know on some of the fan channels, this didn't even go up for order until days after May the 4th. But again, like I said in the beginning, I would prefer if this kind of a release came out and was available to ship before May 4th so that we could enjoy the figure on the holiday that it's meant for. Moving on to the target practice piece, I'm not going to harp on it too much. I just think that this could have been executed a little bit better. It's a fun idea, but I think that the execution could have been a little bit better. And then of course we come to the figure itself. The soft goods on the graphic tee I like. I think it's a fun little novelty. I want to see how they develop this kind of technology more going forward with the line, as I think there are a lot of figure releases that could benefit from it. However, with the figure itself, again, I just feel like the looks and the aesthetic of the pinned double joints doesn't really fit with modern Black Series anymore. And I feel like with this sculpt being the 12-year-old sculpt that it is, I feel like it doesn't really have a place for this style of articulation to be coming out in the Black Series this far into the line. line's existence. But with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. If you're an ARC Trooper in my Patreon, you would have seen this review early. If you'd like access to early content, monthly giveaways, and other awesome benefits, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Become an ARC Trooper for just $4.99 a month. If you're a fan of the reviews I do here on YouTube, or you just want to support the YouTube channel more directly, you could also check out my YouTube channel membership, Rancor Battalion. For just 99 cents a month, you get access to exclusive badges, priority replies in my comments section, you get exclusive emojis, and other cool benefits too. If you'd like some Blitz Transmissions swag, you could always check out the Blitz Transmissions Armory over on Printify. Link to that is in the description below, as well as links to my Discord and all my social media. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking off all units, fire at will. 1-2, pick your targets. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. I've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. I'm hit. Where's our